met their family in passing in 2019. Considering a lot of what has surfaced today happened in the same year as the events I described prior, 2018, I should have pushed even harder and had him completely removed from the server. I was way too passive in a position of power. Axel, meanwhile, is seemingly no longer friends with the Quackity, although the reason is unknown.
There is one question that is recurring currently, and all I can really say about that is I think it's kind of obvious. I think we can all kind of know what the answer to that is, and that's kind of that.
These allegations gained traction in July of 2021, but quickly died down. Fans expressed dismay that Quackity's burgeoning career could be knocked down a few pegs because of the actions of his
keeping that change in the game
and to resurface.
Yet, while still adhering closely to your true beliefs, your goal would be to make a statement in the range of 30 to 50. We would call those statements dog whistles. But when we're aware of dog whistles that can occur up to a range of 49 or 50, what happens to our well-meaning neutral statements? Eventually, it's possible to get swept up in feeling like people who are making statements in range 50 to 65 are actually part of the dog whistling crew. So our politically correct speech must narrow from 70 to 75 or even 80 or even maybe 95 to 100, lest we be confused with a dog whistler encroaching on our space from the other end of the spectrum. Consider the following 1352 statements. Black Americans commit, per capita, the most violent crime in the United States. The number one cause of death for young black men during the coronavirus pandemic were other young black men. Where would you rank these statements? 1350 or 1352 statements are obvious dog whistles. These two similar statements seem like they could be dog whistles, so perhaps somewhere in the range of 13 to 50, but neither of them are, on their face, incorrect. What does politically correct pushback in range of 70 to 100 look like when engaging with these statements? The Anti-Defamation League, a common progressive source on the internet for social matters, claims the number 13 used in conjunction with either the number 52 or the number 90 is a shorthand reference to racist propaganda claims by white supremacists against African Americans to depict them as savage and criminal in nature. There's no further discussion of where these stats really come from on the ADL's page. Our politically correct pushback against the dog whistle has now ventured off into the realm of fantasy. In an attempt to push back in a socially conscientious manner against a perceived dog whistle, we've thrown away the factual grounds in exchange for feeling good. All too often I find those in the politically correct crowd are so eager to disagree with those they confront that they lose sight of what it is they're actually fighting over. Perhaps even more troubling, the same crowd has begun to make guilt by association attacks towards people like me who would rather fight on factual grounds than abandon them for moral condemnation. Losing the factual ground in an argument causes two massive problems. Firstly, it costs you the ability to persuade. If anyone not squarely in your camp were to take a gander at the arguments you're making, they'd feel as though you refuse to acknowledge the reality of a given situation. Thus, they're likely not to listen to anything else you have to say on the matter because you come off as a partisan hack, rather than someone interested in commenting on the reality of the situation. The second issue you run into is that you wind up undermining your own positions. If it were the case that black people in America weren't behind in several key areas, why target those communities with financial assistance or community reinvestment? If it's simply all rigged numbers and misrepresented statistics, then we can say that crime in black communities is a non-issue and simply focus on other problems in society. Can't you hear it? If we can't combat dog whistles with overly conscientious statements, then what is the solution? I say it's best to simply own the dog whistle as truth and demand the interlocutor to clarify their position, forcing them to either moderate it, bringing them to your side, or forcing them to ground it out as something that's not a dog whistle and more revealing of their true arguments. Instead of the ADL's response then, consider this exchange. Despite being only 13% of the population, ... True. Why do you think black Americans commit more crime? They've opened with the 30-50 dog whistle, but now we fearlessly owned the position at 50. We've acknowledged the factual reality of what they're saying instead of cowering from it, and we've pushed the ball back into their court. They can repeat the same dog whistle. They can't repeat the same dog whistle, and now they're forced to respond in one of two ways. Either one, well, a lot of black people are poor or disadvantaged in other ways, which means they commit a ton more crime. Or two, black people are just neurologically wired differently than white people due to genetic differences. Either answer moves the conversation forward, They say the first. It might take some time. It might take some finagling to get them there. They won't readily admit to socioeconomic conditions and will likely have to be talked there from bringing up broken families supplanted by the government, or toxic culture which inhibits their drive to participate in society, or some other argument will eventually ground out into environmental factors. Then we've essentially arrived at an area of agreement. Black people do commit more crime, but the causes are not intractable, and the reasons can thus be ameliorated. They give the second answer, then we force them off the dog whistle into their truer position. We're now comfortably occupying the factual ground and are forcing them to fight a tougher battle, proving race realism, rather than us trying to wiggle and squirm around uncomfortable statistics. For the past couple of years, I've learned to love dog whistles. If I feel as though someone is not being forthcoming with their true positions, I'll simply seek clarification until we've either arrived at an area of mutual agreement where I'm comfortable continuing the conversation, or I force them to reveal a truer, more difficult to defend position that causes them to lose ground with people who are less comfortable agreeing with the underlying extremist positions. Nothing is more frustrating than watching a handful of well-meaning progressives attempt to argue why it's okay to be white is a white supremacist statement, but it's okay to be black would be a perfectly acceptable slogan for an oppressed community. Don't fear dog whistles. Learn to embrace that which is factually true and push forward from there. Ontology. Don't think that you can have any insight whatsoever into your capacity for good until you have some well-developed insight into your capacity for evil. Jordan B. Peterson from a random YouTube lecture. Meta what? Metaphysics is a branch of philosophy that tries to study all of the things that are, like space and time, universal substance, causation, etc., etc. Well, people debate what metaphysics even means, or if metaphysics is even something to be solved. We're not addressing any of those issues here, though. It's simply enough to say that metaphysics is the study of things, and ontology more specifically refers to how things are as they exist. If this doesn't make much sense, it's fine, because metaphysics and ontology are both dumb, and if you ask 10 philosophers to define what these encompass, you'll probably get 15 different answers. For the purpose of this document, ontological just means a sort of classification of something. So when someone says ontologically evil, you're saying that the very nature of a thing makes it evil, implying that there are no other actions or qualities that would allow it to escape such a classification. For example, a combustion engine car might be a category of ontology in which a thing has 4 wheels and an engine. The combustion engine car might be blue or red, might have nice seats or no seats, it might be a convertible or a hardtop, it might move fast or slow, it might be loud or quiet, but it is always going to be a vehicle with 4 wheels and a combustion engine. I wanted to give a brief, better breakdown of ontology and metaphysics, so I was going to read the whole Plato-Stanford section on metaphysics, and the entire section basically said that no one even agrees on what it is, or if it's solvable, or if it's worth it. So, fuck that shit. On the construction of perhaps the largest problem plaguing both online and real-life politics today is our inability to separate people from their ideas. It seems to be sufficient to identify only 1 or 2 bad ideas or statements from a person to classify the entire person as being ontologically evil.